and you're wondering, gee, I didn't think it would be this wonderful 10 years later. And here we are, living in paradise, and it's all due to the John Dicker 10-year plan. Good morning. Say good morning, George.
Good morning, George.
Meyer. Yeah, good one. And Jim Spodek, our producer, who does a stellar job with this program. I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, along for the ride. And to host the show, I guess. We've got three things that we want to talk about today. One of them is the inner workings of the mayor's office, specifically in regard to a piece that came out about where your tax dollars are going. And then, this is a fun one here, the John Dicker 10-year plan. I'm sure that you heard of it at some time in the past, and you're wondering, gee, I didn't think it would be this wonderful 10 years later. And here we are, living in paradise, and it's all due to the John Dicker 10-year plan. So we're gonna revisit that and talk about it a little bit. And then third and last, it just keeps getting better. This is a good one too. Mount Pleasant is now renting land to farmers on the Foxconn development site. Oh my God. And what are they doing with the renting of the land? They're growing crops, is my understanding.
It's about time.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about first the mayor's office and his involvement in the Unified School District, which the mayor really doesn't have any business being involved with the Unified School District, but he's using them, we believe, as a political football to kind of gain support for himself as a political figure. They sent out a little mailer, which was kind of cute, actually. Yeah, here it is, right here. But what it did is it showed the amount of money that's being taken out of your taxes to go to voucher schools as opposed to staying with the Racine Unified School District. And the figures are all wrong, it turns out. The figures that were given on this little piece were 20% of your tax dollars were allegedly going to these voucher schools, and it turns out that it's closer to 5%. But irregardless, what we want to talk about is why is the mayor's office involved in this?
Yeah, how it's a political ploy is what it is. Yeah. My objection to it is that he's calling it transparency. You know, we're just showing what's going on. And if there was ever a good example of a thing called perversion, this is it. Because
and you've been looking for perversion for a long time, haven't you?
How would you know that, Don? At any rate, the point is that it is one thing to be transparent, and normally it's because we're looking at facts. But when you're being transparent or putting forth lies, then it's no longer transparency.
Yeah, when you're calling it transparency, but it's in fact lies. Misleading. Yeah,
that's a perversion of transparency is what it is, and that's what this was. And I can understand what the mayor's doing. I mean, the school teachers have always been a very powerful political force. Mm-hmm. You know, they're relatively well organized. They're above average in intelligence, and probably above average certainly in education, above the average voter and the average citizen. So,
well, one thing we want
to get them as a group to support you politically is a very good move.
It's a powerful move. Yeah. One thing we want to emphasize is that we're not in any way interested in getting in the argument between voucher schools and public schools, because we did that already.
I was going to say, because we've already been through that.
Very frustrating, and I probably think that we came to the same conclusion that you would if you got involved. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's just...
Well, what I want to kind of get into is there was an article written, and it was in a Madison newspaper or online paper, and it talked about they did an actual open records request, and they dragged in some emails from the city of Racine, and those emails are quite interesting. Is how this tax voucher, I guess, informational piece was put into the tax bill, and.
It actually went out in your tax bill. You received that little piece.
Right.
Yeah.
And, we had on previous shows talked about Shannon Powell. He was the communication director for the city of Racine Mayor Corey Mason. how he was hired. And if you remember back in that episode, we talked about the $900,000 for jobs, and he happened to be one of the guys getting the jobs.
One of the jobs,
and it was actually hired through the county, and then he was then floated over to the city. So it was never a city hire, but he now is the communication director.
And the other thing we emphasize, and this is coming to fruition now, what our prediction was, is he would not be an employee of the city per se, like you normally think about him. He's more of a staff member for the office holder, like Corey Mason came out of when he was with the legislature. He had certain people as staff, and when he left that legislature, those staff members go because that was their purpose, was to support him. So Shannon Powell now has moved into that position in the mayor's office, which is more of a staff position for the mayor.
One of
if
four.
We were to get a new mayor,
One of four, by the way.
Yeah. And if we were to get a new mayor, I can just guarantee you those 4 people would go. Because they would be they were there for Corey Mason. The new mayor would want his own staff.
Yeah, it's only $250,000 a year. That's pocket change, George. Come on, you could. That falls out of your pocket on the way to the bank, right?
Well, the point is the new mayor isn't going to be interested in him because these people were Corey Mason staff.
Right, and we've gone back over that. A couple of emails that we brought up with Shannon Powell talking about Rebecca Mason, Corey's wife, being a municipal judge and how he defended the fact, but now Rebecca Mason is no longer a municipal judge, and I know for a fact that that it wasn't that she was leaving that position because she was going to take care of the kids. She was asked to step down, and anybody who wants to come in and challenge that, bring your evidence. Bring your evidence.
I would love to see any counter evidence, but it's the only thing that made sense. It was done so quickly, and so all of a sudden she's gone, and there was only one.
But
reason.
I want to kind of move on now. Angelina Cruz, president of the Racine Educators United, which was the union, was also working with Corey Mason and Shannon Powell to put this piece together. Including,
now that's an important thing because you're going to get into some structure here. That's really important to see because it gets a little bit complicated. But now here we're having the Racine Educators United. All right, that's this political group contacting Shannon Powell. That's the mayor's staff member. So now we're seeing the politics start to work just the way we predicted it would be. This is going to be Corey Mason's staff. Go ahead, Jim.
Take it, Jim. Well, the mayor has no position of authority at all as far as the Racine Unified School District is concerned.
That's right.
So he should not. He certainly should not be taking sides. And that's up to the citizens to decide if they want to argue about that. We don't. But the mayor's office has no business getting involved in this, as far as I'm concerned. He's using it as a political football to gain votes for himself, to create more influence for himself, to cast himself in a better light.
And don't forget the word power, because this is a powerful group.
Yeah,
right. They vote, but they also affect other people.
What he's basically doing is pimping the Unified School District.
What was that? What did you say?
Pimping.
Oh, I thought you
that's
said
exactly
that,
what it is.
Well, is he pimping them or is he pandering
that.
to them? It's a fine line.
It's a fine. We don't know. But here's the thing. It went into now Shannon Powell and Angelina Cruz worked together to produce this piece. Now, apparently, there was some Gmail accounts. Now, we're talking outside of the city server that where Shannon Powell's apparently wife, Chelsea's, did the design work. So this design work was done outside of the city hall. It never went to the Common Council for approval because I think the Common Council should have had some questions. Why are we doing what the school board or the administration in the school district should be? If they want information out, they have the opportunity to do that. It doesn't have to come from the mayor's office.
Well, who, if anyone, paid for these efforts? Who paid for the piece? Who paid for the design of it, etc.?
Who stuffed the envelopes? Because they got a hold of Kathleen Fisher, and she is in the finance department, who was responsible for sending out the tax bill. She now is looping in on these emails also. Now they bring in taxpayers' employees.
Yeah, that's very questionable too.
Yeah, the whole thing it gets stinkier as you go. Now, what they're asking for is where do these numbers come from? And the reporter, and I'm going to put his name on, I don't have it in front of me, but he asked, where do these numbers come from? The Mason's administration says, well, those were given from the school district. And it was a guy named Duff, and he was the CFO of the school district. He comes in and says, school district did not lead this campaign. So basically they asked him for the numbers. Those numbers were, as Duff put it, were the initial numbers that were done in the, I guess they're
But
finance.
what those numbers did not include was a compensation that comes from the state, which
Correct.
again is taxpayer money, but it comes from the state, so it's really not unified school district money,
Correct.
going the way it's implied it's going.
So some of the questions.
Misleading at best.
Absolutely. And
Right.
here's some of the questions that the reporter asked. How much did city taxpayers really pay for the production and distribution of the inserts? Unanswered question by the Mason administration. Is the mayor concerned of the apparent conflict of interest in the city allowing the teachers union to not only be involved in the process, but to control it, or at least a portion of it? No answer.
Yeah.
Some of the communications were Gmail accounts. This would seem to counter the Wisconsin open records law on communications related to government business. Do you have a comment? There was no comment. Does the mayor feel the school choice program or Racine should be eliminated? Again, no comment.
Now, those would be some nice things for transparency in government.
That's transparency right there.
Yeah,
Answer
to
those questions, and then we'll have some transparency.
Right.
I don't have a problem with teachers. I like teachers, and I don't really particularly care if they work for Racine Unified or if they work for a voucher school. I think teachers deserve a great deal of respect. But to be taking sides in an issue like this, an issue that the city government and the mayor's office has no business encroaching in, is just wrong in my estimation, particularly if you're putting out inaccurate information.
Well, why are we breaking down that particular part of? Why don't we break down how much money is spent on police safety, or
Are the police unsafe?
well, safety within the city of Racine? How much are we actually spending per officer or
Yeah.
crime? I mean, you can break down a lot of things. Why particularly this? Because there's votes here. That's why.
Ah,
That's why.
yeah.
You know,
And it's a hot issue. There's not a big issue whether we should have police or not.
right?
But there is
But police are an
there
important
is
part of the
around
community.
the voucher schools,
Right.
So let's put out.
Maybe we should make that an issue,
Information.
whether we should have police.
But you've got a voucher school. You've got the public schools. There's this rub that goes on. So what are we going to do? We're not going to. There was no information on there as far as.
Well, at least put out truthful information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's. It's
That's the bottom line. That's all
yeah,
we're asking for is
I
stay out of business that you don't belong in, and when you do put out information, make sure that it's not misleading.
I think that's a
pretty
basic-
simple
basic
summation.
thing,
Let's move on. Let's move on to the John Dicker 10-year plan. Man,
This,
you
this,
found
this
something.
is a tough one. Yeah,
You found something in here, Jim. That was
I read the
actually-
whole thing.
What was it? There was,
I found one thing that I thought.
Did you
hey,
do it in
yeah,
one
what
sitting,
was it?
Jim?
It was an
I could. It's so.
information officer,
I was
right?
going to say,
Somebody said it's
How-
like pulling
how-
out a box of Kleenex.
how
Yeah.
did you get through half of it without falling asleep? I don't know.
It's got just fluff. It's just the amazing thing to me is that this was his plan to be elected, and I give the guy credit. He was able to throw this out there, and it actually he had
Let me see
paper
this
with
guy.
it.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing there.
When I look at when I first looked at it, I thought, well, this is a bunch of statistics. Somebody got together a whole bunch of statistics. I said, where is the thing that we're supposed to do? So I said, well, I looked at that. Oh, here's one. We must leverage our assets. That's good. It's doing something anyway.
Yeah.
We're leveraging our assets. Bring in new anchor facilities to draw people. It's that type of thing that.
There's no
Wait a
plan.
minute. I think there was one on here where it said, "We will do better." I like that one.
Yeah. Too bad.
Huh?
But what it is it's
Improve
there's
the
no
quality
pl-
of life.
Yeah, it's not a plan. It's I guess just a bunch of nice terms.
A bunch of nice
Yeah.
ideas, cleanup needed, number of jobs,
Collection of catchphrases.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
That's basically
Yeah.
it.
So,
It-
In
Well,
the 10
it's
years.
been 10 years. Yeah.
So what has happened? Has there been any in 10 years? Has there been any accomplishments of the 10-year plan?
Well, we are now the 47th highest taxed city in the nation.
Right. So we were going to be.
That's something.
unemployment came down from 17.5%.
Yeah. And that was, I think, nationally.
And
it came
I
down.
don't think it had much to do with
No.
the
But
city.
we're still number one in the state, aren't we? Or number two?
Well, we've been
One or
rated
two?
number 2 in the state unemployment since the 1990s. I think we're still there, one or
Yeah.
two. We've been in a contest with Beloit for many years, and we generally win the race to the top or the bottom, whichever it is. Manufacturing base, I don't know if that's been changed. The spending continues to go up 25%. From 33.3 million to 44.3 million. So
our spending has increased. There's really nothing
we're
here.
Up from 44.3.
We were going to be one of the top 10 cities, best cities in the nation. Well,
oh yeah.
I mean, it was
top 10 in 10 years.
Oh, that
right. That was the slogan.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's get the taxes down. We're twice our neighbors' taxes. We're the highest tax city in the state, and our regulatory system makes it nearly impossible to start up. That's why I think we are the second or third worst city or community in the nation for black people.
Well, when you look at the southeast district, the southeast corner of Wisconsin, collectively, between what's going on in Racine and Milwaukee, etc., we are the worst. And not just the worst in the country. When you extrapolate that further, it's like we're the worst in the world. I know that sounds astonishing.
Well, not as bad as Syria.
But it's, well, if you're black, if you're a young African-American male, absolutely.
And I maintain that the reason is because black people aren't well connected.
Yeah,
they just aren't.
There is a machine
and
here built.
So therefore, it makes it harder for them to get through these.
George,
hoops
when you have a machine built here to incarcerate, you've got a huge amount of your judges, your incarceration, your probation. All that's built. It's built on putting people in jail. When you put people in jail, you've got a business here. It's a farming industry with black people going to jail here. I mean, bottom line, that's what it is. And there's no reason to be anywhere near. And that's an area that really needs some attention, but we don't address that because we worried about getting reelected. We worry about a 10-year plan. It has this, like I said, pulling tissue out of a box. There's no meat to any of this stuff. There's no real engagement by elected officials to change anything. They talk it, but they never do it. Corey Mason, his line is, we had the 10-year plan, everyone is going to be middle class. Well, how are you going to get there?
if everybody's in the middle, how is it the middle anymore? Don't you have to have
this is it. I mean, you got some serious problems, and they're not being addressed, and they're not being addressed by this administration.
And I think the way to get them addressed, so people can see it, is this open and honest and transparent government. And
put it out there.
Once people see it, I think they're going to see some of the fallacy of what's going on with the spending of money. We can get our tax rate down, and then we can break down the barriers to starting up a business then.
Put it all
some of the things that you have to do in order to start
we've
a business
talked
is
about
just totally ridiculous.
Open checkbook on the internet. I mean, everything that happens in government should be out there for the citizens to view. You let the citizens start to examine what's actually happening within the community, you're going to find some changes.
Folks, can you imagine what it'd be like if you said open checkbook? The city must have 60 different checking accounts. But suppose every single check that was written in that city hall was up for your inspection on the internet. You just wanted to see every single one.
That's not in Mayor Dicker's plan here anywhere? I didn't read the whole thing.
That was not there.
Did you go through this, Sally?
He didn't miss much, but
that's open government.
Yeah.
That's transparent government. That's one part of it. I mean, you need a lot more transparency.
Right.
But
people need to realize
that
too.
Type of thing, not something that comes out in a flyer. That's false information.
And who is Corey Dickert in relationship to John Dickert?
Who is who?
Who is Corey Mason in relationship to John Dickert?
Yeah.
He's the hand-picked successor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. He had a tough. Corey Mason had a real surprise when he came in and going to support that arena.
Oh yeah. Well, but he was ushered in.
He was ushered
absolutely.
in.
Okay, on to item 3.
Yes.
Mount Pleasant. I love the sound of that. I was raised in Mount Pleasant, and I never realized just how wonderful that sounds compared to other communities. But boy, they're doing some strange stuff out there. Mount Pleasant, of course, is the home of the new Foxconn development. Close to 3,000 acres have been set aside for this Foxconn project. And because it's not moving along as quickly as it can, what has Mount Pleasant decided to do, George?
They're going to rent out some of that land.
They're going to rent out some of the land. And what are they going to rent it out for? They're going to rent it out to the very people, or some of the very people that they bought it from, for farming.
Now, I think that's marvelous.
Yeah, we did the calculation and we discovered that at $180 per acre per year, We'll break even in 277 years.
Well, if you pay $50,000 an acre, right? Well, it's less than 300 years. You know that.
Yeah.
That certainly is. You know, it's.
Let's get together for a drink when the
at
mortgage.
least we're not back to Roman times.
Again, it goes into this craziness
Pretty
that goes
unbelievable.
on, and I think one of the statements in there is that we can go into the property. Now it's zoned business enterprise or whatever they called it. Took it out of agricultural, zoned enterprise. The farmer's going back on, and somebody must have asked, how can you go back on a business? Well, he's been grandfathered in.
Yeah, well, it's been rezoned, and they're saying he's been grandfathered in, but
that's
they were
BS.
They were gone.
Yeah,
there's no such thing
I
as
think
being
that was
grandfathered
the key.
in
That was the key point as you brought out, is that they had left the land. If they'd stayed there the whole time, and had been changed, the zoning had changed. Yeah, they can continue their grandfather.
But this is
when
the kind
they
of
moved
stuff they
out
bring
and
up.
came back, it's a little bit wild.
Foxconn just keeps giving. And I truthfully, I think it's just to me, it's a bad move. Not so much on the fact that you're going to get $180 an acre or whatever. The fact is that you have just opened up the floodgates for articles to be written. Foxconn comes in, going to spend all this $90 million from Little Mount Pleasant, $4.5 billion from the state.
No, 900 million.
900. I'm sorry, 900 million. I get a couple of zeros mixed up. But here's the fact, and then you're going to go back at least to farmland. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, and one of the things that concerns me, and would concern me even more if I was renting land from Mount Pleasant, is the fact that there is no assurance that if you plant a crop, that your crop is going to be safe. I mean, it's specifically written into the agreement that Foxconn or whomever is working on their behalf can come through that land. I mean, they could drive a truck through your soybean crop or whatever, and they can say, well, we need the land now, and that's the end of your soybean crop. That's kind of a weird sort of a situation.
There's probably a connection here somewhere. Believe me, there's something more going on here, but too much to dig into now.
Yeah, we'll get back to it later, and believe me, there will be a later in regard to this one. This is just really setting up some kind of a dramatic confrontation of some kind or another.
Well, it's amazing the development of the plan. You have all this manufacturing going to go on, and all of a sudden, 2 years later, it's still farmland.
Yeah.
Well, now we're renting it out.
No, it's not still farmland. It's farmland again.
Again.
So it's time for George Looks at the News. You got a couple items here, don't you?
Yeah, I do. One of them came out last Thursday, where Lisa Neubauer finally conceded in this race for the Supreme Court, which is fine. I still have a problem with her, though, sitting on Sandy's case. Right now she is in the appellate court, and she is the lead judge that Sandy Widener's case on the open records request, and she is the sitting judge that has the primary power over this case at this point, because she's the lead one. And there's just a horrible conflict of interest here. Her daughter is Greta Neubauer, who is now in the state legislature. Now, this is a very powerful position, particularly for a young girl like Greta, for her to get it. And how did she get it? Well, the primary move on it was she was Corey Mason's assistant. She was on the staff. We talked about Corey Mason had this staff. Well, when he left, of course, Greta was out of a job. But like Dickert chose Corey to his successor, Corey chose Greta as his successor.
And I believe there's a relationship between Corey and Jeff Neubauer, who is Greta Neubauer's father, who formerly held that assembly position.
He held it too, that's right.
And was Corey not on his staff? I believe he was.
Could have been.
Yeah.
But the thing is so I think the Neubauers are very indebted to Corey for their daughter having gotten this position. Now we know that her father Jeff poured some money into the campaign, but still, her getting this nod and this lead from Corey was very important. Well, that takes us now over to Corey Mason, and who is the primary mover of this Sandy Widener case? Who's behind it, and the whole secrecy thing and closing down government? Corey Mason. So we have Greta Neubauer now, or Lisa Neubauer now, listening to a case that involves Sandy Widener, who was the opponent of Corey Mason in the mayoral race, and she's supposed to listen there and not have any, just no thoughts at all.
I'm sure there'll be no problem, George. What else you got?
I just have a real problem. To me,
I agree.
It's more than money. It's more than you gave my daughter some money. You gave her a new position in life.
It's a point of
You
concern.
took her out of nowhere. No one ever heard of her, and now she's this state legislature. She's in the newspapers a lot. She's a totally transformed person, at least as far as notoriety goes. I just think that's.
Did you have another one there?
This is an interesting one. I think downtown Racine booming. I think it's very
I
interesting.
was wondering what the hell all that noise was.
Yeah,
It's downtown.
well, there's 23 businesses opening in 2018 and more coming. I think this is good news for the city. I want to acknowledge these companies. Hopefully they'll be able to get in there and survive, because I know it's hard to get started in this city,
Unless you're connected.
Unless you're connected, and if that is, I think that's a good news for downtown. I just want to cover one more, and that is the Delta Hawk. Now, Delta Hawk was one of those famous lists on the Redevelopment Authority, where it had just, we put all this money into it, taxpayers' money to it, and nothing came of it.
Nothing.
Well, Delta Hawk all of a sudden is rising into some prominence. I mean, they're looking like it's good. How do they do it? Believe it wasn't our money. It was done the way it was supposed to be done. There was a venture capitalist came in and put a lot of money into it, and that venture capitalist is no other than Rude Electric, which we've known. Now, that's the way it should be done. In other words, a private investor comes in, and by the way, since Rude Electric has gotten into it, Al Rude is his name, the employment has grown from 3 to 45 people working at Delta Hawk as a result of that addition. That's the way it goes. That's a true venture capitalist. Putting his own money into it, taking a risk, likes the idea. It's an old idea, folks, and it's one that has not worked. They've not been able to make it work yet.
Right.
So it's still got to get some things tested. But if
well, we've been hearing for years
that
the latest tests are very, very promising. We've been hearing that for a long time. And I hope that it proves to be true. I hope they start manufacturing engines over there, and that it's a highly successful company.
I do. I really do. And I wanted to bring it up because that's the proper pattern, not for the city to come in and throw money at
We
it.
stuck in, I want to say, $450,000. The state stuck in almost $750,000 on that, initially on that original Delta Hawk, and that money was just gone.
No, it's gone.
They were going to put 200 employees. Nothing happened. Finally, when it hit rock bottom, after apparently all the money's gone, venture capitalists came in, and now they're making something actually happen. So you're right. It's a great, and I hope they do well.
This is the way it goes. And if it goes, and then Al Rude can make a lot of money off of it, as well as anybody else invested in it. But it's not a taxpayer. That's not a taxpayer type of activity. And this whole list of the things we've gotten into with the millions of dollars we've gotten from the redevelopment fund is really wasted money. It had to be spent in a better manner, not trying to invest in venture capitalism.
Well,
it's a great idea. Just you got to make it work.
Well, thanks for the update on that, George. Good job. Okay, gentlemen, it's been fun. It's been a genuine pleasure having this discussion with you and having you visit and watch us do it. So we hope you have a wonderful Monday and a good week, and you come back and visit us again next Monday. Thanks for being here.